So welcome everyone. My name is Jayas and I'm a chief of staff at Talview. I'm working alongside the CEO on multiple new initiatives. This is one such initiative. So our topic today sounds very simple, but it's a hard one to solve. Hiring is local, the risk is global. So let's start with telling you all what a GCC is. GCC, a global capability center, is an India office of a large global company. It's not a vendor, it's not a call center, it's part of the core company. India has over 1,700 of these centers, and they employ over 2 million people. And it's one of the fastest growing parts of our economy. Now, there is a bit of risk associated with these GCCs, specifically with respect to hiring, and that's precisely what we're going to be talking about. And you'll be asking, what is that risk, right? A GCC hires a person in India, and once that person is onboarded, he gets the same access to systems, codes, customer data, and a whole lot more, as much as a colleague of the same role sitting in US or Europe or wherever else the offices of the company may be. So you might again ask, so what's the risk about it? Yes, actually there's no risk. But if this person has come in through fraudulent means, through cheating into the company, then it's a wrong hire. And then it becomes not just a local HR issue. It's not a local HR mistake. It's a security risk for the whole company. That's where we say the decision was local, but the risk is global. And this is what we're going to be discussing today. And I have two gentlemen here who are part of the panel. Let me introduce both of them. Diwakar A is part of the global talent acquisition team, and he leads the team in India at, of course, Dassault Systèmes, a Paris-based company. And he heads the hiring process across India, including Bangalore, Gurgaon, Pune, and many other cities. I have Ahmad Maredia. He's an enterprise architect at Workday, and he designs hiring solutions and other HR solutions for companies around the globe. Welcome to both of you. Now let's get into the discussion itself. Diwakar, let me start with you. Tell us a little more about Dassault as a company and its operations in India as a GCC.
Good morning, Jayesh, and thank you so much for this opportunity. And good morning to my other panelists, Ahmad, you as well. And so it's a very great opportunity to talk about my company where I have presence for the last 9 years as a talent acquisition leader. Dassault System is a scientific technology company where we combine science, technology, and art. So as you mentioned, we headquartered in France and spread it across in almost 140 different countries, which worldwide spread it across 160 different offices that we have. And we specialize in 3D design, 3D digital mockups, and product life cycle management software. So I think that's predominantly Dassault System. And then I think we are a product technology company. We directly jumping into the global products, and we hire at the large scale for a skilled and specialized roles. That's a quick about Dassault Systems.
You talked a little about hiring. So can you elaborate a little more about how Dassault as a GCC in India, how is the hiring different as compared to probably a regular company in India?
Yeah, it's a hot topic. And in regular Indian company, there's you hire for that company, but the role, the systems, and the data sits in India. Okay, that's a regular cycle. But in specifically in GCC, you hire in India, but the person works and represent the global parent and the global systems from the day one of the onboarding. But the high bar is set by the headquarter, and we hire to the global standard, of course, with the local speed and scale. That's what GCC is all about now.
Interesting. So what you're saying is a person is hired in Bangalore, for example, into the Indian entity, but he or she is actually working for the global company, and therefore the access rights, all that would be the same as somebody probably sitting in Paris, the headquarters of Dassault, right?
Yeah, of course, the whole point of a GCC is basically an engineer who's been hired here, same code, probably as you mentioned about Paris. And uh, uh, I mean, the same analyst will be seeing the same customer data. The access is real and the global access to be given from the first day. That's how the setup is.
That's interesting. So hiring at this kind of scale and at a speed that's pretty, you know, stringent. What kind of pressures do you face in your job?
Wow. Uh, that's a very tricky question. And, in fact, the hiring manager or the hiring team or the business team needs the resource as on yesterday. When we ask, when do we need the resource, they say, we need the resource as on yesterday. That's how we've been getting. But here, demand is very high and timelines are very, very tight. Okay, business team need people very faster. I think that's where the talent mapping or the talent pipeline kind of projects will really help you out. Uh, which means you're ready for tomorrow. And then how do you collaborate with the business team to understand what skill that are upcoming or what is the potential attrition that we see? I think we generally look forward, that, and then you build talent already with the talent. And since we hired the last number across many roles, right, from engineers to architects or it could be leadership role, uh, I think this same things makes very highly faster. And of course, we have to be careful with the current situation about fraudness a candidate can get in with a lot of AI or a lot of access to the tool.
Got it. Okay, let me bring in Ahmad now. He's been waiting. Now tell us more about Workday and how it runs the people side of customers' business, which of course includes hiring as well.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm glad to be sharing the panel with Diwakar. Coming back to your question, so what is Workday? So Workday is the world's largest cloud-based HCM solution, which hires, like you said, the entire hire to retire life cycle of an employee for each of our customers. Not only are we a great fit for large enterprises with about 60% of Fortune 500 customers being our clients, but we're also a good fit for mid to large Indian organizations with global ambitions or for global organizations with a presence in India, as we allow our customers to bring in standardization across their global operations, while the flexibility of our platform also allows for customers to manage local regulations, culture, and other nuances. For a global company, that means one single trusted system and one single trusted data model to report against across countries, time zones, and teams. That is why GCCs love us, and so do companies that either have operations across different countries or those that aspire to do so, as it provides them a stable but flexible platform to grow their business beyond borders. And obviously, the entire journey starts from hiring, and we play in that area as well.
And interesting that you say that it's a mix of local cultures and the need of a global company, right? Needs of a global company. And you're probably able to match the two because you understand both the situation, both sides of the scenario. And perhaps that's the reason why a lot of DCCs are looking at Workday as a solution to do their HR activities. Now, so what challenges do you see in terms of hiring at GCCs? You mentioned one of them being, to understand both local flavors as well as the needs of the demands of a global company. But other than that, do you see any other challenges today?
I think Diwakar covered a lot of the challenges, right? And I think the volume and pace of hiring at GCCs does put the recruitment teams under a lot of constant stress, which can eventually lead to unintentional human errors or in some cases, even intentional shortcuts. And I want to stress here when I say intentional shortcuts, mostly without any intent of malice. The person taking the shortcuts in most cases thinks that they're benefiting their company by bringing down the overall hiring time. But let's be honest, right? If you take a look at it from 35,000 feet above, all of this is just adding to the risk that we've already discussed so far. And this is not just at GCCs. We see similar patterns in all industries which have a business need to hire fast and at scale. BFSI, retail, these are two broad industries that come to mind, but there are obviously many more that need to hire fast and at scale, either because they're growing very fast or they're growing fast and also have high attrition rates. BFSI is one sector that comes to mind, but there are others that fall in that bracket as well. The problem
Right.
with volume-based hiring is that a lot of the process and sometimes the entire process is done via online channels, with no one on the hiring side actually meeting the candidate in person. Given this, as well as the potential of human errors and shortcuts that I spoke about earlier, you're looking at a cauldron of risks that most senior execs today honestly prefer to look away from, because they have other problems to solve for. But that does not take the problem away. Problems still exist.
But let me just quickly look at what are these frauds, what are the types of these frauds that we are seeing today, just for context sake. So the fraud comes obviously in different forms. We have the deepfake videos, you have stolen or fake identities, you have proxy candidates who sit in for the real applicant, you have AI feeding live answers while the assessment or the interview is going on, and of course hidden locations using VPNs. All these are just a tip of the iceberg, I would say. There are plenty more. But then most important thing is that this is not something that's going to happen in the future. No, it's happening now, right? And it's happening across the world. For example, let me tell you about an incident in the US, and it's a globally well-known fact. In the US, 300 companies, including some Fortune 500 names, hired North Korean operatives by mistake. And they were not real candidates. They're not local candidates either. What happened was the candidates actually used stolen identities, fake documentations, deep fake videos, all that to pass those interviews and get employed with those companies. And then what happens? Once they are inside the company, they have access to the entire system. They have access to everything which is sensitive data, technology, secrets, all those things, right? And they earned a lot of money, which actually went back to Korea to fund a banned weapons program. Interesting, right? But this is what the enormity of the problem is. And these companies did the standard checks, right? But the standard checks are not sufficient enough, apparently. Now, think of it from an India perspective. We are practically the back office for most of the world, right? The same fraud can happen here in GCCs. I'm saying that Diwakar, your company, or some other company that you're talking to, Ahmad, would happen, but there is a good possibility that this can happen here in India. And the problem is that it is the same as it happening elsewhere in the world, right? Because India is opening up its doors as GCCs. They are exactly the same company that runs elsewhere in the world. So the risk is higher, and therefore the amount of precaution that we need to take, amount of work that we need to take to ensure that this doesn't happen is the responsibility of the local GCC managers, the GCC talent acquisition heads. Diwakar, you agree, right? In your company, you had these situations, so you took sufficient care to make sure that, and sufficient process changes to make sure that these are not going to happen. Now let's look at the costs that's getting associated because of a wrong hire. Because it's extremely important, right? Because somebody who's not supposed to be here in the company is now here without others knowing that that person is not to be here, right? So what is the cost associated? Can you talk a little more about it, Diwakar?
Yeah, to continue what I said to answering your previous question, right? It is all boiled down to the cost of the hire. While quality of hire is one of the very important, and of course we have to be looking at the cost of hire. So I mean, these days, any services or a product company to get a hunt for a very good talent, takes minimum 2-3 months time, and then of course, they may have to wait for 2-3 more months to onboard the resource, which it will take around about easily 6 months times to close or onboard the resource to run organization. And yeah, I mean, of course, I spoke about 3 months probation period. And then you may have to wait, you may have to do some certification. Initially, you'll not get into the project, or you'll get into the certification, training, such kind of thing. Now, where I'm coming from, after 9 months of duration, you actually come to know this is not the right resource that whom I interviewed, or this is not the right resource for the project that we need. So this is costing 1 year, 1 good year, which means it's a direct cost involved, course, the salary paid, the time lost of the entire hiring team, business team, onboarding team, probably the career and perform team. And I mean, these days, as I mentioned to you previously, I answered about the hiring of the business team needs the resource as on yesterday. When we are in that kind of situation, loss of 1 year, it's very high. I think few of our global services role actually billable, where we will have to introduce. Sometimes you will able to introduce the resource much before the person joins. The customer is paying for that particular project, and they found it fake. The customer find out. That's the last thing that we wanted. But of course, it boils down to losing the billing revenue, and of course, very important is the customer trust. So there is an entire team cost. A wrong hires slows the team, puts the manager in the damage control, and kind of drags everyone's output, Jayesh.
Yeah, it's a huge cost that the company is incurring. And you also need to look at the next person who is coming in, right? The entire process has to start all over again. The cost starts once more. And like you rightly said, if it's a billable resource, it's revenue. The company is actually losing revenue. Okay, let's move on. Ahmad, Diwakar spoke about costs in dollar terms, I'm sure. But you see this situation from a different perspective, from a hire to retire kind of perspective, right? So when a fraud hire gets in, the damage does not stop at the gate. So what else does it happen? How does it impact the company in other ways?
See, the risk is real and deep, right? I don't think there's any debate about that. First of all, you've opened up access to your company's internal assets to the miscreant, right, to the fraudulent candidate. Over and above the financial losses and lost time that Diwakar spoke about, there are other softer areas that I want to touch upon that we often disregard, but have real impact. One is reputational loss, right? For you as a company, Diwakar spoke about the fact that eventually their customers also come to know that they've had to replace that candidate with another candidate. So they've lost time, they've lost money. And that eventually, if there's repeated instances of this happening, it leads to reputational loss. You also have to realize a much softer psychological impact to existing employees, right? And these are, I think, two areas that not a lot of focus is given to, but I just wanted to highlight it. Secondly, because data is extremely important to me, as a tech person, I think it needs to be kept as sacrosanct as possible. And something like this contaminates the data and the process. Let me talk about the process first, and then I'll come back to the data aspect of it. So the examples that Diwakar was giving, a lot of companies that I work with, they have all experienced some type of fraud, right? And in some cases, the impact may be small. In some cases, the impact is much larger than what is being discussed over here. But every single company that experiences hiring fraud, okay, always reacts by overcorrecting and adding additional checks and balances and additional steps to their hiring process, right? I have never come across a company that has run into a situation and hasn't overcorrected. Now, the problem with this is this has a multiplier effect. The obvious thing is it slows down the hiring process, right? Your time to hire goes down because you have additional steps. You have too many steps that you've added. But you are also driving away top talent who probably gets a faster offer from another company who's competing for the same resource, right? Because you can be sure that the candidate is definitely interviewing with multiple companies simultaneously. You are not the only one he's talking to, he or she is talking to, right? And the longer and slower process that you have now moved to, right, is definitely putting you at a disadvantage. And you should also pay attention to things like word of mouth. younger candidates share a lot of their experiences online. And we all know that there are dedicated websites to share your interview experiences and things like that, right? And as word spreads that your process is very long, very convoluted, a lot of top talent will stay away. And only those who aren't getting any offers at other places will apply, leading to an anti-evolutionary scenario of adverse selection where you're actually getting, instead of the cream talent, you're actually getting the bottom rung talent. That's the only type of talent in your pipeline, right? So these are, challenges that process or changing your process can lead to. And then coming back to data, one fraudulent hire will actually, multiply the data entry will multiply across systems and analytics, right? And I can talk about this all day, but, keeping time into consideration, let me just give one quick example. It makes the analytics unreliable. Even simple metrics like quality of hire by source, because Diwakar spoke about the fact that they do take into consideration the quality of the performance of the candidate. I'm sure they also take into consideration the source, right? Because you need to aggregate all of that data. So something like that becomes unreliable, leading your organizations to start taking wrong hiring decisions, going to different sources, right? And then workflows planning becomes a guesswork when your records become dirty. And all of this can start a vicious downward spiral that you definitely want to stay away from. So, I've heard one bad hire can become a cost and risk multiplier across your entire business.
So Ahmad, we've seen that the interview integrity and the fraud is a big challenge for us here, not just in the GCCs, but across other sectors as well. And it is getting more critical by the day. How does Workday meet this challenge of fraud and interview integrity for its customers?
So Workday is strongest at helping you manage your recruitment pipeline from sourcing to moving it forward, managing it, moving it forward, and eventually, helping you grow your talent across the entire journey and ensuring that it is always done in a consistent and compliant manner. We can also help with improving the productivity of hiring teams by automating or repetitive tasks, right? The recruitment agent that I spoke about earlier, and ensuring that, your checks and balances, your document verification, all of that can be automated. But checking whether the candidate is a real person in the real world is a completely different thing, right? And because of that, we've chosen a specialist partner for it, right? This is why Workday and Talview signed a Workday Innovation Partnership to bridge this gap and make sure that only the right and real candidates enter your recruitment pipeline. So Workday brings the right people to the gate, and I see Talview as a ticket checker, right, who ensures that only the right candidates or the valid candidates walk through into your talent pipeline.
Thanks for mentioning that. Yes, we are today being enrolled as innovation partner by Workday. And one of the reasons is exactly this, that Workday realized that we had a solution for this challenge in a fairly decent way. So let's move on. Before we close, I had a couple of questions to both of you. Now, a lot of GCC leaders are listening to us. If one of them actually comes up and says, we know that this is a matter of worry, but how much of a worry is it? Is it a little bit of worry? Is it quite a bit of worry? Or is it seriously worrying situation that we are in? Oh, a question to both of you. So who wants to go first?
Ahmad,
Yeah.
is it okay if I take?
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
please, Diwakar, sure.
Oh, yeah. No, it is a very interesting question. In fact, that's the question of any business leader has been asking us as well. Yeah, see, if you ask this question, Jayas, a few years before, I would have probably, or even Ahmad would have answered it, could be a bit worried. But the current situation, it's seriously worrying. Okay, because the reason is any GCC makes a very high value IPM sensitive data, because that's where their capability center is in India. The prime probably target is to highly, mitigate or sophisticate these scams actually. Now, in this world, with the corporate identity theft that we have, and then of course, and then AI-driven interview fraud that we spoke about, or it could be a credibility, and so on. I think all this are are getting involved or getting probably resulted in a very seriously worried situation now. Okay, and I think this is becoming very serious issue for the hiring managers.
So
I
you're
think that
saying
has to
it's a
be involved.
seriously worried
Yeah.
issue, worrying issue.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Ahmad, what do you think?
I think my answer is pretty much the same as Diwakar's, right? 3 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said, I'm a little bit worried. The problem exists. It's an issue, but not something that would keep, organizations awake at night. But now with the advent of AI and this era where, making fraudulent things or where fraud is so easy and to conjure up and scam people is so easy, I am honestly seriously worried uh, because of non-disclosure. I can't share stories, but some of the stories that I've heard from some of our customers, right, honestly would keep a lot of risk officers awake at night, and can't share those on open platforms and public platforms because of risk of non-disclosure agreements that we have with a lot of our customers. But my message to anyone hiring at scale and doing online hiring, right? I think treat this as a real risk, a real massive risk, not a small risk anymore. That's all that I have to say.
I completely agree with both your sentiments. It is a seriously worrying issue, and everyone who's looking at recruitment, they should be completely aware of it and finding out how can they take care of this for their organization. So we would like to close now, but any thoughts from you? Just quick 1 minute.
I think we've covered a lot of aspects. I don't have
Okay.
anything more to add.
Diwakar, anything
Yeah.
that you want to
Yes,
add?
Jayesh. In fact, we covered and we discussed a lot of things. But I think we are smart enough for the current situation with things which is moving across. And we know the problem statement. This is not the time to talk about the problem statement. It is how do we give permanent solutions to the today's technology world. I think we need to all work towards that direction. I think that's what I would give a key message here to close this.
Right.
I just have
I just
one
had
more
one more-
thing. I just
Sorry,
had one
go
more
ahead.
thing to add to what Diwakar said. I think his point about being taking action and not worry, right? I think it's going to be a cat and mouse game going forward, especially with AI in the picture, and organizations will have to keep improving their risk mitigation measures. And believe me, fraudulent candidates will come up with new ideas, and we will have to come up with new solutions to figure out those. So it's going to be a constant cat and mouse game, at least for the foreseeable future, is the way I look at it.
Great. I think talking about new ideas, I just want to take a minute more on that. You heard of CIBIL scores, right? We all use CIBIL scores, and banks use that to give loans to consumers. Consumer product companies give EMIs based on CIBIL scores. Now, what if we had something on the same lines for candidates, a trust rating that actually follows them? Wouldn't that be a huge deterrent for them from not getting into this? So however much we try to block this, identify the problems, all that is great. But suppose we are able to nip it in the bud, so to say, so that more and more people just stay away from doing something like this. Wouldn't that be a great idea? Just because you spoke about new ideas, I thought I should bring this in. What do you think, Ahmad?
I think it's a pretty interesting concept, and I can definitely see how it can be a powerful gatekeeper. It can help mitigate risk. It won't completely take the risk away, but it'll actually, at the top of your pipeline, it can mitigate some of the risk. And I'm definitely looking forward to see how it shapes up. Not only from a risk angle, which is obviously important, and I think that's probably what you're trying to solve for, but I think it'll also make the candidate experience better for honest candidates, because now they are not, competing for the same job in a mixed pool of fraudulent and honest candidates. They're only now competing for, so basically, I think it makes their candidate experience better as well. I think it's pretty interesting.
Thanks.
The
What do you
trust
think,
score.
Diwakar?
Yeah.
Any ideas on that?
No, it's a very interesting question, and then very rightly answered. I never thought from the angle that you got in about civil score. It's not only about probably identifying the fake candidates or whatever it may be. This civil score should also add a candidate who is backed out at the final stage, accepted offer, wait 90 days, wait for an organization, and so on. I mean, it's a complete package. Oh wow! I think. I think if this is idea which any good idea, I feel it is an execution. If it gets executed, it would definitely change a perspective of a candidate, and that would change the behavior and the ethics, whatever we are talking about in this whole conversation, right? That would pass on, and then probably cheating ones would follow you out every future application, right? And then it definitely pure and then lesser one also.
Yeah, great. I mean, I thought you added some more variations to it, some more elements that could be brought in, like somebody who's accepted an offer and not joining. Those are smaller things, but still adds a minus brownie points to the whole thing, right?
I think
No,
the
it's
idea has
also
immense potential, I think. And, I spoke about risk and candidate experience, but with Diwakar's additions, I think it can be a great value to the companies as well. Because if you are now, keeping a history of where offers were accepted and the person didn't show up or didn't join, and if this history follows them for life, believe me, candidate behaviors will change, right?
Will
And while
change.
we're talking about a lot of all these fraudulent issues, even honest candidate, they may not be fraudulent, they may not be this thing, right? But at the last minute, if they don't show up, that itself is also another cost to the company, and your time to hire metrics and are all over the place. I just think that this idea has immense potential. I think you can take both of us as consultants, and we can take this
Oh,
forward.
thank you so much. We'll definitely come back to you on that. Yes, we are working on this, and I'm sure we'll come out with more concrete information about this. Okay, so I think we have exceeded the time a bit. So let us close. So we all agree that there is risk, and this risk is real. It is here and now, and it is global, right? But the good news is that the answers to are there to some extent. It's not like completely done, but yes, some answers are there, and these are quite effective answers that we can do and execute today. Talview has a solution, and like Ahmad said previously, you need to fight AI with AI, right? If you have a problem with frauds being conducted using AI, we have to have AI to fight that, which is what we've done. So we have a proctoring solution called Alvi. It's a patented product. It's an agent which watches the interviews live. It catches the deep fakes, it catches the proxies, and even the fake identities. It can actually kill those systems that are actually giving answers online effectively, putting a stop to fraud in a large way. Of course, nothing is 100%, and every time you need to be, ahead of the curve, because the fraudulent people are also looking at these challenges and trying to be one step ahead. We need to be one step ahead. But yes, we have a solution that we can provide and make sure that the person who joins the company on the day of joining is the right person, and he's the same person who was interviewed and evaluated. Thank you very much, Diwakar. Thank you so much, Ahmad. It was a great pleasure. The discussion was extremely good, and I really want to thank you for that. And everyone who's listening in, thank you so much. You've been excellent listeners, I'm sure, and I hope there was some value that we could add to you. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much. Thank
Jayas,
you
and
for
thank you so
having
much,
us.
Ahmad.